Okay, so Major League Baseball has been in the news lately for some Babe Ruth memorabilia that's just sold for $18 million. The famous Call the Shot jersey that he was wearing before, well, basically the day he calls out to the pitcher, I'm going to hit a home run there. He points it out with the bat, the pitcher pitches the ball, he slugs him over centre field for a home run. Now, Babe Ruth has an interesting record. He doesn't make the list in this video, but he does have an interesting record. He's scored 3 home runs in the same game in the postseason. However, 18 players have scored 4 home runs in the same game, all in the regular season. Now, what is very interesting is how few players have actually done it. No player has done it multiple times, and in 130 years, that's right, 130 years of Major League Baseball, as I say, only 18 separate players have hit 4 individual home runs in the same game. That is ridiculous. Considering the steroid-juiced ball era, how hard this is to do. But early on in Major League Baseball's history, 2 players did it in 2 years. So Bobby Lowe was the first player to do it on May 30th, 1894, playing for the Boston Beaneaters, so that's some history there, against the Cincinnati Reds. It would only take 2 years for Ed Delahanty, who is a Hall of Famer, to do it on July 13th, 1896, for the Philadelphia Phillies against the Chicago Cubs. So you're thinking very early on out the gate here, if you look at this could be a regular thing, right? No, it takes until 1932, June the 3rd, in fact, and Babe Ruth's famous teammate Lou Gehrig to hit 4 home runs in a single game for the New York Yankees against the Philadelphia Athletics. Now, Lou Gehrig is quite famous, obviously, for A, his early retirement, and B, his untimely death due to Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a form of ALS, which is a muscular and nervous disease that is incurable. So if you've heard of Lou Gehrig's disease, he's the guy it's named after because he was the first official case of it. It was a rare form of ALS. If you don't know what ALS is, it is a muscular and a nervous system disease. And he died very, very young. Not long after actually hitting his 4 home runs. He had to retire, and he sadly passed away very, very young. He's in the Hall of Fame. Famously, he obviously fell out with Babe Ruth. The next player to do it takes another 4 years, and that's Chuck Klein. July 10th, 1936, for the Philadelphia Phillies against the Pittsburgh Pirates. But that was a right raucous game there, a bit of rivalry between Philly and Pittsburgh. He's also in the Hall of Fame. So, first 2 players do it 2 years apart, then there's a lengthy gap, and then 4 years apart, Lou Gehrig and Chuck Klein, both Hall of Famers, do it. We will not see it again for 12 years until Pat Siri did it on July the 18th, 1948, for the Chicago White Sox against the Philadelphia Athletics. Notice some of these team names. You know, the franchise names, Athletics, Braves. Teams relocated a lot in Major League Baseball. A hell of a lot. So the Oakland Athletics right now going through their relocation. Teams relocated a hell of a lot back in the day in Major League Baseball. Some of these teams don't even exist anymore. But there we go. So Pat Siri, 1948. Now, it only took 2 years for Gil Hodges, who is a Hall of Famer, to do it in August the 31st, 1950, for the Brooklyn Dodgers, who are now obviously based in LA, against the Boston Braves, now based in Atlanta. Yes. Because wasn't just the Red Sox in Boston. You had multiple teams in Boston. That was in 1950. Now, as I say, Gil Hodges, Hall of Famer. Joe Adcock would do it on July 31st, 1954 for the Milwaukee Braves against the Brooklyn Dodgers. Both those teams have since been relocated. Now, Milwaukee does obviously now have the Brewers, by the way, whom we will see them later on this list. Rocky Colavito, June 10th, 1959 for the Cleveland Indians versus the Baltimore Orioles. That's quite a tasty matchup if you know your baseball matchups and your baseball rivalries. He did that in 1959. Willie Mays, Hall of Fame, did it on April the 30th, 1961 for the San Francisco Giants versus the Milwaukee Braves. So the Giants get on this list. We would not see a player for the best part of about 15 years do it again. Mike Schmidt, Hall of Famer, April 17th, 1976. The Philadelphia Phillies versus the Chicago Cubs hit 4 home runs in a single game early on in the season. It would be a decade before we saw another player do that. Now we're into the juiced ball, the steroid era. A decade. Bob Horner, July 6th, 1986. The Atlanta Braves versus the Montreal Expos. So now we're in the height of the steroid era, the juiced ball, where home runs are going all over the place and players are, well, built like brick shithouses is the best way to describe baseball players at this point. They're all on steroids. So few players are doing it. You would think multiple players would be hitting home runs. Not a thing. So we only have one player in the 80s do it. Mark Whitten, September 7th, 1993. St. Louis Cardinals versus the Cincinnati Reds. Hit 4 home runs in a game. We would have to wait until after the millennium for this to happen again. Now, this is gets very interesting. It happened twice in the same month in the same season in 2002. Firstly, Mike Cameron on May 2nd did it for the Mariners of Seattle against the Chicago White Sox, and then Sean Green on May 23rd of 2002 did it for the LA Dodgers against the Milwaukee Brewers. So 2002 it happened twice. The following season, so we had 3 in 2 seasons, Carlos Delgado on September 25th, 2003 for the Blue Jays of Toronto against the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, who are now just the Tampa Bay Rays, hit 4 home runs. We would have to wait 8.5 years until 2012 for Josh Hamilton on May the 8th for the Texas Rangers in 2012 against the Baltimore Orioles. And then 2017 it happened twice as well, at either end of the summer. So Scooter Gennett, what a name. June 6th, 2017 for the Cincinnati Reds against the St. Louis Cardinals, hit 4 home runs in the same game. Later that season in September of 2017, J.D. Martinez of the Arizona Diamondbacks against the LA Dodgers hit 4 home runs, and J.D. Martinez is the only active player on this list, and he is the latest player to hit 4 home runs. No player has done it since September 2017. J.D. Martinez is the last player to do it, and he's the only active player on the list to have 4 home runs against his name. The last Hall of Famer to do it was Mike Schmidt on April the 17th, 1976, and what is most stunning is Babe Ruth doesn't make this list. Postseason he does, because he's the only player to hit 3 home runs in the same game in the postseason, but he doesn't make 4 home runs in a single game list. But his famous teammate Lou Gehrig does. I'm also surprised how few Hall of Famers have actually done it, considering how select this list is, with only 6 Hall of Famers doing it, and no player has done it in 2 separate games. You're one and done when you hit 4 home runs in a single game. It shows how hard it is actually to do. And if you look at the steroid era, how few players actually did it. What is very, very interesting, though, is twice in the same season in 2002 and twice in the same season in 2017. And the lengthy gap between Ed Delahanty and Lou Gehrig. Lengthy gap. It's a very long gap. Also, Chuck Clean and Pat Seary. Again, lengthy gap. Another lengthy gap is Willie Mays and Mike Schmidt. But for the most part, it's pretty regular. At least once a decade. Although in recent years, we've had a spurt of players doing it since 2002. We've had the averages have got less. So it'd be very interesting to see when the next player hits 4 home runs in a single game. It could be a decade. It could be less than a decade. It could be more than a decade. But generally, it's pretty regular. If you look in the 30s through to the early 60s, it was pretty regular. It was every few years a player would come along and hit the ball out of the park 4 times. It's become rare. It became rarer in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then the 2000s. Again, it's gone back to being pretty regular again. So it just shows how the sport has evolved. It goes through fluctuations. But there we go. There's the 18 players to hit 4 or more home runs in a single game. Who do you think the next player could potentially be? That'd be very interesting to hear from Major League Baseball fans who you think the next player to hit 4 home runs in a single game will be. Have they even been drafted yet? Is there no one in Major League Baseball who is capable of this? Maybe J.D. Martinez becomes the first player to do it a second time, which is another interesting thing. But there we go. There's a reason why these records are so hard to break. There's a reason why things like this are so hard to do. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.